Sorry, just one sec. Hi, good morning, guys. Sorry about that. It looked like the room got opened early. So hi, everyone. If you're here, I believe our presenter checked in on her links shortly after 10 o'clock Mountain Time and started the broadcast. So some of you who have a habit of waiting in the waiting room probably got entered into the event a lot earlier than I normally start it. So sorry about that. It is now 10:38 in Alberta, so 12:38 Eastern Standard Time. So we'll start the pre-show, and then Lisa will be joining us in about 20 minutes. So thanks so much for being here, you guys. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for basically 2 months now. I was counting the other day, and we are up to, oh geez, I've lost track. I think we're almost up to 30 sessions. So I appreciate you guys being here. I know that I'm certainly looking forward to a little bit of a break and an end. All good things come to an end, and POOLaide will not be finishing forever, but certainly the number of webinars and calls that are available, we're all just sort of done. So hi, Carrie from Pennsylvania. Say hello, anybody who's here. Let me know what you're working on, I guess. Are you working on reopening? I was looking on Instagram this morning. There was a specific organization that I won't mention, but I posted in my Instagram stories. So in the Lakeview Aquatic Consultants Instagram stories last night, I reshared a video clip of a swim school in the southern United States that is reopening on Monday, which is fine, but the whole video and post on Instagram is got these guys in face shields in the water, in their rash guards, and I don't want to spend the whole 20-minute pre-show being a negative Nelly and describing why I think that's a bad idea. It's out there, and so when I hear Canadians messaging me, where did I find this? There's lots out there. There's lots of pools that are open, lots of pools reopening, and I'm not passing judgment. It's different for every facility, but it's something to be aware of in the industry. So let me know where you are at with your pool. Let me know how you are feeling about that. It is Friday in Canada. It is a long weekend, which I didn't even realize. Somebody said to me yesterday, have a great long weekend. It is the May long weekend. That's kind of sad. So in the United States, you have Memorial Day next weekend. That's your big weekend. For us here in Canada, Victoria Day is our big long weekend to pre-start or jumpstart the summer camping season, the outdoor pool season. And so I'm trying to remember the last time, it's probably been 8 years now, that I haven't been extremely swamped and busy with work at this time of the year, right? The May 2-4 long weekend it's different to be in my house, to be not thinking about opening pools, to not be thinking about staff scheduling and training and in-service. It's a little bit different. So I see, welcome, Nicole's here from Chicago. I see a few other names. Let me post in the chat box. I see a couple people here from Alberta. Let me post the show notes from the aquatic professionals meeting we had on Monday. Second. So if you are located in Alberta or you're not located in Alberta and you want to join in on our call, this past Monday, we had the Alberta Association of Aquatic Professionals meeting. I hosted it. So Lakeview Aquatic Consultants, we hosted it on this platform, Click Meeting. And so that recording is now available on YouTube, as well as I went ahead and did a detailed show notes to go with the YouTube recording. So all of the documents that were shared by Dominique in that meeting are also available on the forum side of the AAAP website. I'll put that in the chat box. aap.ca, but I wanted to make sure that the resources were available publicly to any other person that watches the video recording, whether you're in British Columbia, Ontario, Pennsylvania. So I've grabbed all of the show notes as well in one document that we're hosting. So I'm just going back and scrolling 1 second. I see Katie says city beaches will be open in July in Ottawa. Katie, will they be guarding like Mooney's Bay, places like that, or will they be unlifeguarded, swim at your own risk? Let me know. I'm actually not too up on the staffing levels. I'm not typically in Ottawa in the summer, but I certainly know there used to be some water safety equipment. Brad, I'm just reading your comment. Thank you for facilitating all of these, bringing everyone together. Opening June 1st with significant restrictions. The big pivot is that the governor of Texas gave conflicting direction, and we're waiting on clarification. Pools can open, but our showers required by our health code cannot. So that's really interesting. Brad, I definitely feel for you. So Texas, Arizona, I know I was messaging with Kelly Martinez a few days ago, and the governor of Arizona said something very similar. The city of Phoenix, thankfully, is consulting with council, and they've already said to the public that the city will require 30 days for the municipal pools to open. It's so conflicting, right? So thank you for your kind words. Thank you. I've enjoyed the webinars a lot. I know for myself, I am reaching a point where we all need a break. So I appreciate that you like them. And yeah, it's so difficult to know what to do, and unfortunately, we can be a maverick and a leader and do our own thing. But as our industry or as the region where we're located, kind of moves apace, it can be hard to have the tides go past us, especially with our ratepayers and our customers wanting the pools open, but then what's the right thing to do? I know City of Austin a month and a bit ago, I was talking with Ashley Wells, and they had their showers open, public showers for homeless and other populations that might need access to them, but they don't have their pools open, right? And they're not anticipating until June 1st. So definitely a challenge. So looks like there'll be some energy into beach lifeguards, Katie Short is saying, for the city of Ottawa. Makes sense, because a lot of people, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. If we have lifeguards or not, people will find places to swim, whether that is in a lake, a river, a dugout, a water tower, right? There's places to swim that are safe and lifeguarded, and then there are unsafe places to swim. So welcome, those of you just joining us. Let me also post the show notes from Wednesday. I got Wednesday's show notes done, so let me pop those in the chat box. On Wednesday, we had a bit of a discussion about health and safety. Not firing on all cylinders this morning. I'm just a little bit slow. It's Friday. I just got my cup of coffee going. So on Wednesday, we had somebody here talking health and safety tips. So that recording is now available on YouTube. The show notes are now updated. I'm caught up on all of the POOLaide webinars except for last Friday, the inclusive aquatic inventory. That one's been taking me a bit longer because the video file is so large due to the recording device recording for 12 hours. I have to make the file smaller before I can even upload it to YouTube, and my week has just kind of run away from me. But the show notes for Wednesday are up. We had a conversation about some health and safety tips to get you started. Very informal, very much not procedure or exactly what to do for your state or your province, but just different kind of tips and strategies from somebody who enjoys doing health and safety documentation. Monday, we had Maria Bella here, Aqua Conscience, the drownings in lifeguarded pools. That show is it's been updated for a while. That one I got done quite quickly, actually. So the webinar recording for Maria Bella is done. Let me put that in the chat box. You can watch it on YouTube. You can download her PowerPoint slides. I was able to cut out that 2 minutes in the middle where we had some technical difficulties, and it's a pretty straight, seamless video. So you can have a look at that. And then I will remind you guys, next week is the last week of the webinars. So if you're interested or available, registration links are up for those, the final 3 live sessions with me. So on Monday, we're talking in service. Let me put the link in the chat box. So Monday, May 18th, we have 2 ladies from the University of North Texas, Denton. They will be talking about in-service now and in the future. So really important that you guys know, I spoke with our presenters Monday. They were on the Zoom call that was hacked a few days ago, the North Texas Aquatic Association Zoom call. And so I met with them yesterday or the day before, and I was just chatting with them about the security features that we have in place for these webinars, and that their presentation is secure and that they can be confident to come on here, and that it's restricted. So attendees, those of you watching me right now, you can't private message, you can't dump files, you can't screen share. The restrictions are very much to me as the host, and then today's presenter will be Lisa. So she has audiovisual capabilities that I have authorized, but then she will also have to authorize. So that is a huge part of why I chose this program and safety features in a webinar delivery versus a meeting room. So I've spoken with, it's Kristen and Chelsea. They'll be here on Monday, and hopefully they can feel a bit more confident that everything will be safe and smooth and private in this situation. Then next week, our other 2 sessions, we are going to have a session with me on Friday, May 22nd. That'll be the last live show. I do have 2 prizes that are being sponsored by Master Pools of Alberta. They reached out and said they wanted to do a giveaway of 2 gift certificates to any webinar attendee. So we will be doing a live prize. You have to be in the webinar to get the secret question, a little bit different from the ones we've done before, but there'll be 2 $100 Amazon gift cards available for any attendee who comes to next Friday's session. And the Wednesday session, I'm just looking, I dropped my link. Wednesday next week, we will have a session. A lady named Eileen Kwan, she'll be talking about how to really navigate some of the post-COVID conversations around budget and accountability and conversations. So let me pop that link in the chat box. 1 second. As I said, I'm not firing on all cylinders today. It's Friday in my head. So this will be the Wednesday session, May 20th. Hello, Julie from Missouri. Hope your pool things are still going well. You're coming to the end of that first week of reopening. So I know earlier in the week, Julie shared with us, so they're, smaller community, and pool has reopened in Missouri, and some challenges with getting seniors to comply with physical distancing. But hopefully, Julie, things have gone okay otherwise. Let us know any specific learnings or discoveries you've had that you'd like to share. If you're just joining us, I have added to the chat box all of the links for next week's sessions, the 3 final live sessions. POOLaide will be going on hiatus. I don't know if that's any better. Sorry, I came back in. I apologize. We were having lots of tech issues, so I just went out and came back in. So hopefully that addressed some of it. Friday. If you assume too much, if you assume everything will work, of course it won't work. So yeah, I apologize for the quality, you guys. Thank you for your patience. It is, when you've reached the point where you realize, it's swan song, you're kind of at the end. Well, we're definitely kind of at the end for this. So 1 more week. Thanks for hanging in there. If you've just joined us, let me know where you're from. I know where you're from, I guess, but your presenter today, Lisa, this is her first POOLaide webinar. So if you want to pop in your location, that will be helpful for her to know where you are from. That's always nice. So city or state, that's great for her to know. Our presenter has lived in lots of different places, so it's nice to see where you are from. I will cautiously go big a little bit and then go back. So I'll cautiously go back and then we'll get started in 1 or 2 minutes. And I will introduce our speaker, and then she will get going, and hopefully my internet will do what it's doing as best as it can. So welcome. I see lots of different people. So John is here from New York. I see Andrea. Jill's here from Ames, Iowa. Daryl from Perth. Jose from Dieppe. Evan. Evan is here from Arlington. I see Jane from West Hartford, Connecticut. Charlottesville, Virginia. Cheryl-Ann from High River. Karen from Medicine Hat. Tracy from Charlottesville. Troy from Baton Rouge. Alyssa from Frederick. Shauna. Hello, Shauna's here from Edmonton. Lisa from Creston. Jody from Tucson. Corey from Whitby near Oshawa. John's in the Catskills. Anita's here from Smith Falls. So welcome, everyone. So we will get started in 1 minute. I will pop the show notes for today in the chat box. If you just joined us, I apologize for the internet issues. I had to log out and then come back in. It's not a good internet day so far. You know when you feel like you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and then nothing works? That's kind of how this morning has felt. So fingers crossed we have a good session today. So I have put the show notes. Let me pin those in the chat box. So those will be for today, the PowerPoint slides that Lisa has provided, as well as any resources. What happens is I will go back and update those after today for the session. Couple quick announcements I want to make. If you go up in the chat box, you can scroll up. You will see links for the show notes for Wednesday's show about safety, Monday's show with Maria Bella, Monday's Alberta Association of Aquatics professional meeting. Last Wednesday's show is updated. So the only show that is still missing is last Friday's Inclusive Aquatics Inventory show. I'm just having some difficulties with the video file. So once I get that updated, then that will be on YouTube. So follow us on YouTube for all of those releases. If you want to receive access as soon as they're posted, the best thing to do is to follow us on YouTube. So let me post that link in the chat box. Other thing I wanted to mention is that this weekend, every weekend during COVID, I do send a weekly newsletter. So if you would like to receive the newsletter, please make sure that you sign up on our website. It's important that you know that participating in a POOLaide webinar does not automatically sign you up. So if you would like to receive the newsletter, please sign up with the link in the chat box. All of our old newsletters are posted on the Lakeview Aquatic Consultants website. And so if you want to get a sense of what we send out as newsletters, specifically during COVID and previous to COVID, I will pop that link in the chat box now. Okay. So I think with that in mind, respecting your time, I'm going to do my introduction. Then I will introduce our presenter today, Lisa, and I will pull up the slides and let her get started. So for those of you, I think everybody knows me, but for posterity's sake on the recording, my name is Katie Crysdale. Today is Friday, May 15th. And we are in the final week of the POOLaide webinars, which is a series that I started during the COVID-19 pandemic, a series of conversations and presentations from aquatic professionals on a variety of different topics as they apply to the industry. And certainly in the early webinars, you can go back and see core topics such as in-service and accessibility. As the webinars have gone on, I have wanted to present more information that I feel people need on areas kind of at the edge of their knowledge and sphere. And so today's presenter, Lisa Reinders, is an individual I worked with and for 3 years. And she has a lot of expertise and a lot of experience in managing projects, getting big activities going in terms of strategic planning, capital projects, all of those things that hopefully you're lucky enough in your career to be involved with at some stage, or at a practical level, some of you have been involved with in terms of grants for small projects such as accessibility lifts or renovations. And so today's session, I'm very hopeful that she can share some inspiration and some ideas for how to get your projects going. Because I know, for speaking for myself, when I was an aquatic professional, before I had done one of these projects, I didn't know what the process looked like. All of the decisions at my previous employers had been made above my pay grade, so I didn't know what the process was. And today is not an exhaustive session about procurement and writing proposals, but it's getting you to think about how can you take your vision or your dream to be either shovel ready or ready for implementation. So I'm going to authorize Lisa's microphone and camera. And so you guys know, this is the lag that you guys have seen for sessions now. This is the security lag that you need to consider when you're doing online sessions. The reason there is a brief lag is because we have a double blind, right? So Lisa has to authorize her microphone and camera after I have given her permission. So that is why there's often a little bit of a lull. So we'll give Lisa a second to get on with her microphone and camera. Perfect. Oh, 1 second. I don't think we can hear you, Lisa. One moment. There we go. Good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
Chat box, can you just confirm for us that you can hear Lisa as well before I turn off my microphone?
So the volume is good. Okay, move this back a little. So today, I have been thinking a lot about municipal recreation. It certainly is a passion of mine, and I worry about you regularly, wondering how life is and the challenges you're facing right now. And so I just want to discuss a little bit about some of my thoughts and to help and support you on that. And discuss a little bit about the current reality. And then also there are some opportunities out there already for you to think about. And a part of the presentation will give you some tips and tools and things I've learned. And I'm going to use some practical examples. As Katie said, I've had experience working in different communities with aquatics. So a little bit about me. I'm a passionate community developer. I've managed an outdoor pool in Golden and loved swimming at the noon with the sun shining. I've managed pools in North Vancouver and then finally in High River, and it is always wonderful to have a pool in your community. And with this work, I've also, as Katie mentioned, we've worked on different projects. And so I've mentored a community leader to build a spray park. And then also worked on a referendum to see if we could build a new aquatic facility and the process around that. And then also just because we all know that a lot of pools were built in the 60s, then you have to work on feasibility and structural studies to find out how to fix it or go to council and determine if we can even build a new one. So yes, as I said before, I love the aquatics world. Right now I'm working on my master's in community development from U of Vic and working for Quantum Recreation in master recreation planning and volunteering for organization to build a pump track in High River. So I'm still working in recreation and loving it. So the current reality, as we all know, we have closures of facilities, we have the layoffs of staff, which is really challenging. And then we're really sort of grappling with what social distancing means. And then also that there's going to be these new regulations and how do we manage that in recreation. Just to keep in mind that things are still moving. So for example, I'm working on a pump track for High River, and they're still looking at that grant and seeing. So I think when we think about projects and things that we want to accomplish, whether we've already put in a grant or we're thinking about a project, I think there's still some possibilities to move forward. And for example, the resources for COVID specifically, they've allocated part of the Canada Infrastructure Program specifically for COVID. And so they're going to be helping recreation facilities to determine what they need to improve and meet the regulations. And then also part of that grant is to look at outside facilities, and so pathways, trails, and supporting communities to with the social distancing. So you can certainly have a look at that. And a great resource is Canada Parks and Rec Association. Probably a lot of you are familiar with that, but it just sort of, what's good about CPRA is it gives you a synopsis of what's happening in Canada. And now I wish I had looked a little more for the US, because I think there are certainly, well, I've looked at the National Rec and Parks Association website, and it does have similar sort of summaries and helping recreation. I guess the other thing too that I've noticed with the current reality is that municipalities are still doing requests for proposals, and they're working with Quantum Recreation. We're still putting in proposals, and so I think just to be provide some of that optimism of that how we go forward. It definitely is challenging, don't get me wrong, but I think there still are some possibilities. So when I guess the other point I want to make now is when you're thinking about grants, you can sort of look, as I said, what the reality is and what's out there. And the last time I looked at grants, as I said before, there's the COVID, climate change, cultural spaces fund, and then also asset management. And asset management is a good one because we have all these aging facilities, and you have to do the condition assessments. And you also need some money to determine how to fix them. So those are, if you're thinking about possible streams of direction to go, those are probably ones to look at. So as you've always heard, how to get shovel ready. So government loves to say in their PR announcements, your project has to be shovel ready. It has to be, all the proposals already got to be written. And sometimes that's super daunting, and we don't even know how to start. But I believe that just through some of the things I talk about, it will help you to get more ready. And I've used parts of these steps. I've used some of them. And so you can kind of pick and choose to see what would fit for you. And just to keep in mind too, like some of my I'll use these steps that I've got below, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not, and you kind of wonder, well, I did this and this one worked and then that one didn't, but I still believe that these are the core for what you need to really implement a project successfully. And just as I said, I was thinking about you, and probably one of the hardest projects to do in a municipality, in my experience, has been renovating a pool or building a pool or asking to build a new pool. And this is really when you have to have all the tools and techniques and the support from your colleagues to find out what's worked, what hasn't. Because I was always amazed. I don't know, it's probably 20 years ago, but Creston just said, we want to build a new recreation facility, and they just did it. They didn't have a lot of grants. They just said, we're going to build it. This is the whole cost, and the community approved it. And you're just like, you're going, wow. And I was always so amazed. I was living in Golden, and we were working on a referendum, and Creston built a pool. And I'm just like, so it happens. It's possible. So I'll go through the slides, and with the slides, so it is about empowering a passionate advocate. It's figuring out, envisioning that vision, and planning is in the details, aligning with community priorities, being grant ready, foster allies and alliances, be grant ready, it takes a village, what's your elevator speech, and then celebrate small wins. So the project that I'll use that kind of showcase this process is a dedicated community group with a desire to create a place for children to meet and play, and they built Gusher's Spray Park in Golden. So, empowering an advocate. Joanne is a local business owner of a pub. She's a mother of 2 children, and she's a passionate community leader. She had a dream to build a spray park for her children and the community. And over 3 years, she volunteered countless hours dedicated to building that spray park. And at some point, she didn't even, I think both of us were in the office and we're going, this is just never going to happen. She investigated the opportunities, she wrote an in-depth proposal, she gained community support, and she built strong partnerships. And those are her words. That's what she feels that really made this project successful. In the end, she successfully raised, with lots of support, $250,000, coordinated the development, design, and construction of the park. And why I feel an advocate is so important. It's the passion that keeps the project going. I think you need that one person that has that big smile and the vision of that pool in front of you to really make it happen and to keep us all going. You need that voice for the vision. And for us, it was to create a safe place for people to play with water. And her passion and that vision, that's what you need when you go to town council or to an open house or to a funder. So then the vision. I think it's really good to put things into words and to create a short sentence of why we're all here. And so it answers that why. Simon Semenuk always talks about why, but actually I think all of us as recreation staff, we are so driven by the why that it's probably innate. And I think that's why we're so good at it. But it really is a great place to start, to put it into words, into one sentence. And it's also, as I said, it inspires action. So when you get Joanne and myself and we're up in front and talking to volunteers and we say, we want to build a spray park and it's going to be a safe, family-friendly, accessible park. And then you can visualize exactly what it is and you can get excited about it. And I think for a tip, one of the tips I would say is to collaborate on the development of the vision. Get a few people in the room so that you get a variety of ideas of what it should be. It can be your initial community group. It can be staff. It can be, just get more than one person working on the vision. And I think it's important with the vision that it is simple. It's something that we can actually say, and it is at the top of our head. Don't make it too long. So and I looked this part up to see what, the best tips for a vision were. And so then they said simple, actionable, engaging, collaborative, forward-thinking, specific, which makes sense. That's exactly, and you want with the vision, you want to be able to have your advocate and the staff and the council to be able to all say exactly what it is. And why it's useful to have a vision. It's really useful because when you write your proposal, most proposals ask for a vision. It's extremely important with funding and grant applications. They're going to ask you for the why. And it's really good for presentations to council. And then the next step when I think about action, you think about objectives and goals. And with objectives and goals, you really want to sort of set out what you want to accomplish and that you all agree on what it is. And it's good to have it in the back of your mind so that, day one, these are the things that we wanted to accomplish. And then 3 years later, we go, oh my gosh, we did. And so for the spray park, we wrote them down. We said, use potable water. have the project developed by Golden Community Resource Society, which was a local nonprofit. So they were going to be the lead. And we were going to have the park operated by the town of Golden. We had absolutely no idea we were going to have the park operated by the town of Golden, but we wanted that. And we wanted emissions free. We didn't want a fence. We didn't want emissions. And then the final one was we wanted to fit within the water conservation strategies. So those were our goals, and that's what we were working forward to. And yeah, this one takes a little effort, but planning is in the details. I think it's well, as you all know, as recreation people, we beg, we borrow, we steal, we copy, and our colleagues are always so happy to share because we want to learn from what didn't work, what worked, and what people would have done differently. And I think those initial research, whether it's finding similar projects, whether it's discovering best practice because you read a newsletter, or going to a conference or a workshop, or interviewing someone, or a tour of a facility. Each of those really gets to find out what the best way to do something. And every park seems to be different, or aquatic facility seems to be different, but then you learn from it. Is it salt or chlorine? Is it, or is it, I'm not getting, anyways, I'll stop there. But it is, the initial research really helps to save some of the time when you're going forward. And then writing a proposal. And this is your business case, and it's evolving. It definitely is. So you'll write your initial business case, you'll have your vision and your goals. And an outline usually includes the vision and objectives, as I said, and your project team, who's the host agency. And in that case, it was Golden Community Resource Society. And who are your strategic partners, and to really make this project go forward. And for us, it was the town of Golden. And what town commitments do you actually need to make this project possible? And so for us, it actually was that the town had to own and operate it. A nonprofit can't really afford to own a spray park. And then, of course, within a proposal, it is about the why. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? How does it align to priorities? And in our case with the spray park, it was about increasing access and providing an accessible and safe place to play. It was about water conservation. We knew we were adding a park, but we also wanted to align to our sustainability goals in the community. And we wanted to align to the Early Childhood Coalition strategic plan, which was a local coalition working on projects for young children. And that was part of our why. And tourism, and, another amenity for our community, another place for people to come and play. And actually, in this case, the spray park was across from the campground and right beside the pool. So you're just going, well, those are all great wins. That was a wonderful location, and it improves tourism. And then a part of the proposal is your design and the illustration. I think it's good to get a pretty picture right away so that people see what it is. And that what equipment or manufacturing company you might consider. In some cases you haven't chosen, but maybe list a few just to say, here's some companies that are doing it, or if it's a pool, what architects might work on the project. And then location. In many cases, when you do your first proposal, you have 2 or 3. And so a part of your proposal is the review of those locations, and that you will decide what the best location is. And health requirements, as you probably all know, and I won't go into much detail on that. And then budget. And budget is also an evolving one. You do your very, very best to create a comprehensive and clear budget for what you want to accomplish. But in some cases, things will come up that you'll learn more about what it is, and that does change the budget. But you certainly want to try to get as close as you can initially so that you can apply for grants. And then a part of a proposal isn't so much the last point I want to make, but you do have to start thinking about it, and it is getting support letters. So it is your nonprofits and your coalition and even your local financial institutions that say, you know, this is a really great project, and those support letters certainly help with you presenting to council. It helps with you applying for grants. So do your research, write your proposal. This part is time consuming. However, the work that you do now will certainly help you in the time after when you're implementing your project. And I believe this work really helps it to be more successful. Aligning, okay, I'll go forward. There we go. Aligning with community priorities. I started this conversation initially about what federal grants are out there, and I think you really do have to think about what's out there right now and how you can align with them. And you do, it's good to think federally and to think provincially as well as municipal. And in many, many cases, those priorities are completely linked to dollars and to initiatives. And so federal government is elected, and then they say we want to turn everything green. And then in the next 6 months, you have all these green initiatives. And then if you're ready and moving, then you get to apply for grants for new lights for the pool and or even to improve insulation. Katie and I were working on feasibility and structural assessments of the pool in High River. It was built in 1979. It was super old, and boy did it, and it was literally like duct tape and crazy glue to keep it going. And so any sort of initiative that comes out with that is asset management or green really supports a pool that's struggling. So I think with just coming back to some of the comments of what's out there right now. So federally, it is about COVID and the access to some money to help with improvements to meet new regulations. And then also that same infrastructure money, they're looking for projects outside. And so is a water feature or a pathway, like I think you just have to sort of think about something that might sort of align with that. And then municipally, it is looking at what your community wants to achieve. And so I pulled out the Town of Golden strategic plan, and right now they're focused on climate change and asset management. And so aligning with that may help with your proposal or project or requests for funding. And then when you're doing your proposal, it's just really good if you're looking at provincial or federal programs, it's good to have a host agency or align with some nonprofit organizations that are supporting the same work that you want to accomplish, and to add their priorities in there. So it's kind of like saying, we're going to do this, but it also aligns with Golden Community Resource Society, a nonprofit in Golden, and they're also working on it, and they're our partner. So it's just creating those priorities and showing how important it is. And that's really what's happening in this with aligning with community priorities. It's really saying, why is this important? And this is why we're doing this. I think for an example for this, I think for me, it was when I was working in BC, and I was working in Golden, and I'm an avid cyclist, and I just love pathways and trails and connectivity. And so when I first came to Golden, I'm the manager of recreation. I wanted to improve active transportation for the community. And I used my role to apply for a provincial grant. It was the BEAT grant, and then I got an active transportation plan that could be aligned with our town plan. So now we have a map of where new trails should be. And one of my dreams, because I'm the advocate and the passionate person, I wanted a safe way to travel up along Highway 1. And it was a busy highway, and there is residential and hotels at the top of the hill. And so I want a safe way to get there. And so that initial work, and so I'm kind of sharing how I aligned with provincial funding. So that initial planning grant allowed the town to apply for a BC program. And they got a local motion grant for $380,000 to improve pathways. And so there's our start. That's how we aligned with provincial initiatives, but also aligning with the communities wanting to be more connected. So, be grant ready, how to fund a project. As I said before, this is probably one of the hardest parts of the whole process. And getting funding for an aquatic facility, in my experience, has been actually the hardest. I have built natural playgrounds, I've built spray parks, I built, well, honestly, that pathway was 1.56 million, and I helped, I was one piece of that, but I got that built. I haven't actually built a new pool. Creston did. Then lots of other communities did, but I was not a part of one. I've gone to referendum, I've gone to council, provided options, but I'm still hopeful and optimistic, and I really do believe that everyone does have a really strong opportunity to promote and go to council and say that we need a new pool or we need to fix the one we have. And the other thing I want to point out is I've applied for countless grants, and I use, you work super hard at meeting the requirements of the grant. You feel like you've written it really well, and some are successful and some aren't, and you're kind of going, but I did all the steps they asked and I met their objectives. So you just have to go, well, that didn't, something else, matched more. So once again, just keep trying. I think for the spray park, we applied to over 7 different provincial, federal, CBT sort of foundational grants, and so you just keep trying and find the ones that align. I guess the tip for me in this one is that you need small and large grants, and you need them all. You need the small grants to help you create the matching funds, and you need the large grants because it just you couldn't get enough of the small ones. So keep that in mind, that it's really good to apply for a small grant to sort of get your matching grants, and then go for the large ones to help with your final budget. So what I found helpful is to, once again, create that realistic and comprehensive budget, to find grants that align with your project. And when I say align with your project, don't make your project fit the grant. You just have to find the ones that align and are a good fit. I also have found that you do need to find, and you do need to find matching funds. So whatever grant it is, there's a percentage that you have to have. So, and ways to get those matching grants is you have to find financial contributions. In some cases, it's town commitments, and that's super cool. Or it's another small grant that you applied for. It can be in kind. In many cases, there's lots of in-kind support. And then you might have to go the extra mile and get letters of actual saying, okay, this fellow's going to do construction and it's worth this amount of money. And land allocation actually can be used as, in some cases, well, every grant's different, but I'm just kind of using mine as examples. But land allocation also can be a part of your matching funds. And when you get up into those larger grants and projects, then the land it sort of helps with that. And then I guess it is also looking at every possible, so there isn't sort of one place to go to look for all the grants. And there are some places that do have lists of some, but then sometimes it's a foundation that'll help you with funding, or it's even a financial institution that is interested. But it is sometimes it's government programs, and government programs change regularly, so it's sort of keeping track of that. But I think I'll send some links of some grant locations that I have, and then I'll send that, or Katie can send it out, so at least you know that you kind of have what I have. And then it just as an example, the spray park here. So when you look at it, we were super lucky. The town of Golden, for some reason, felt this was a wonderful project and was willing to invest. And their commitment was actually pretty high when you think about it. They gave $80,000, they allocated the land, and then they were willing to operate and maintain after. So that's not usually the case when it comes to projects like this, but we were, like I said, for some reason it really hit them in the right place, and they felt this was worthwhile. And then Columbia Basin Trust is a local organization in the Kootenays, and so they provided some money. Success by Six was an early childhood funding program. And then, of course, we talked about the Columbia Valley Credit Union, so a financial institution, and then a foundation. So as you can see, it was a little bit of everything that made this project go. And for the most case, I'm just looking, these were all local, other than, well, Columbia Basin Trust, as I said, was the Kootenays, but then there was a local office in Golden. So, allies and alliances. This one is where I've probably learned the most over the time that I have been working on projects. And in many cases, it's kind of one of the more important ones. Joanne said the statement below, and so I gained community support, and I built strong strategic partnerships. And so in that case, it was that we had Connie Barlow was the executive director of Community Resource Society, the nonprofit that was our host organization. And she was an influential leader in the community, and she knew a lot of people. And then the Town of Golden Council and myself, we were the supporters of the project. And I mentored Joanne on how to navigate town and project processes. And then council, as I said, approved the project in premise initially, and then allocated land, even designated the project manager, and financial contributions of $80,000, and willing to operate and maintain. And I think when you get that kind of commitment from town, it is about the relationships and seeing the value of the project. And so it probably isn't bad to kind of just draw your project out and then see who you might want or need to make it go forward. In communities, is it a council member? In our case, it was the executive director, was kind of one of our first people that really supported the project and got the message out. And you can, just kind of list a few people out and find and see, do you know them? Is it good to go for coffee to talk about the project? So it takes a village. I think what I also have found that you sort of need all levels of support when the projects are larger. And aquatic facilities are large projects. And Calgary's actually built quite a few new pools, but they do it sort of with a neighborhood approach, and usually find a third party to operate. But so it is about who's going to be involved in the project, and where do you get your support. And so with large projects, I think when I think about this, I guess I'll just do it through a story, and I started it a little bit initially was when I was building that pathway. And when I share this story, it kind of shows how each person was a piece of making it happen. And it was through their stories and their support that we finally got to build a pathway. So I was the passionate cyclist and wanted to have a safe route on Highway 1. And I advocated to the town that we needed to include an active transportation plan as part of our town plan. And so, and getting an initial grant of $10,000 to support the development of that plan. Because I don't know if the town would have actually found it in their budget to do an active transportation plan. And so it was just wonderful. There was a BC initiative, and so we had a plan. And with that plan, and with this sort of initial, I would say, focus on active transportation, we started a community groups, and we didn't even have a very good name. I always think back on it. Why didn't we? So I think we always just called ourselves the Active Transportation Community Group. And we would meet and work on local initiatives, trying to get bike racks, but then also in the back of our mind, it was to do the larger project. But that created the momentum and promotion among the community. And one of the key things was we got a teeny bit of funding to hire an active transportation coordinator, and he started a relationship with the local Ministry of Transportation. And so it was kind of that face-to-face, and it's kind of sharing our story of what we wanted to accomplish in Golden. And then the municipality is a partner in all of this. And so with that money, they're enabled to apply for that locomotion money to get the $380,000 to say, yeah, we need to build a pathway along Highway 1. But one of probably the real turning point of all of this was Mayor Christine Benty met with Minister Bond. And she knew about our project and knew about the initial money we had. And she really pitched for this project. And then the minister, he announced at the provincial conference the investment that the BC province was going to make for the Golden Project. And I always think back on that. It's like, wow, I don't even know if I had a real heart-to-heart with Christina Benty about this project, but she knew about it. She knew about our work and knew how passionate we were. And then she was right beside Minister Bond and talked about it with the same enthusiasm. And then we got $600,000. And the final one was with the relationship that Luke, who was the active transportation coordinator, had with the local Ministry of Transportation. They agreed to project manage the project as part of their highway. And so once again, it was like, wow, this makes this project doable. And so I know that isn't an aquatic story, but as I said, I haven't had the opportunity to really work on building a new pool. I've done referendums, but no new pool. But that kind of shares, it takes a village to really do a large project. So the total budget of that one was 1.56 million, and you just go, wow, and all the different pieces it took. And the last thing, or I think, well, second last thing is you want your elevator speech and communication strategies. And so how do you promote your project in 5 minutes? Give your speech to everyone. So, and it's kind of like the vision. Tell your story, use all forms of media, interview locally, regionally, provincially if you can, go to conferences and present if possible. You just don't know who you're going to meet and who can help you and who has answers to questions you have. And each of those have always helped me in getting a project going. Celebrate small wins. I think I got to learn more about this one because, as you know, projects take a while sometimes. And actually, some of the projects that, ended up being 3 to 5 years. And when you're sort of in the midst of all the details, you kind of lose track. And you can lose momentum and oomph. And so things that I think it's important that you support yourself and the community leaders and the volunteers you have around a project. And one way is celebrating those small wins. We had that active transportation group. Maybe we should have celebrated more when we put in a bike rack and when I was putting in the Golden Spray Park, maybe we should have really celebrated when we got one of those small grants. Columbia Basin Trust, they gave us $5,000, yay! So, and that's one step closer to your final budget. And the other thing I wanted to share with you is sort of just challenges and lessons learned. Some of the things I've learned is every project is different, and I think it's a little bit about what I said about grants. I think I've got it all figured out. I know how to write a grant, or I got it all figured out and I figured out how to develop and implement a project, and then and it doesn't go the way you think. And I think you just have to adapt, figure out what's happened right now, and then just keep going. And they are all different. The other thing is the importance of allies and alliances. You just don't know where the support is going to come from. And so taking the time to share your story either over the phone or have a coffee. And I think it is mapping out some of the people you really think you need to support it. And maintaining momentum and succession planning. I don't think we think a lot about what happens if a key person is no longer there, or because in some cases it could be 3, 5, 7, or even 10 years. Who knows? But yeah, just sort of actually taking the time to think about how it can go forward. And I think a key part of always keeping it going is that you have a very strong vision. You have very strong objectives, and that creates the foundation, and you have a good idea of what needs to be done. You have your project budget. You've got a program plan. Maybe you have designs. So those are all sort of foundational pieces, and then a new person can come in and pick up where you left off. So I think those are sort of my experiences and questions. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to chat. Katie.
Yeah, chat box, can you guys hear me too? I just want to make sure, you never know. Make sure, hopefully you guys can hear me. Thank you, Amy. I want to say thank you to Lisa. I know this is a topic there. You can tell by the attendance today, this is a smaller group, that this is kind of one of those other rocks that we don't always want to flip over because there's so much work that goes into starting a project, and we don't necessarily have the time or the energy. So I want to chat a little bit, Lisa, in your experience, because I know you've been a community services director, a rec manager. How can we as pool supervisors, how do we filter what to pursue when we have like a ratepayer come to our office with an idea, or we have an idea? How do you decide like even to start?
I actually think that actually starts with your own team.
Okay.
I think it comes from the aquatic supervisor and the team, and they know their facilities better than anyone. And I don't know, every organization is a little different, but if you have an opportunity to create your own plan of what you think needs to be done and how to improve, and getting some traction around putting a few thoughts together and then going to your supervisor, the community services director, and seeing if that can be. I know I have been in organizations where they do give an opportunity to present ideas for the 3 to 5,
Right.
and
So
that's a perfect place.
yeah.
And collecting all those ideas from the public. Now, the super hard part is that there's noisy public, and then there's engaged public that we don't hear about. And so for recreation, pickleball are the noisy public, or aquafit is a noisy public. And maybe that isn't actually, the most needed thing. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's, I think it's important to have all the ideas, but I think it gets hashed out with your staff.
Okay. I want to touch on what you said, Lisa. That's great too. I hadn't even remembered. So few of us are involved. We do our annual budget, maybe. We might even forecast next year. Okay, next year I want extra program supplies. But how do you decide what is, a project like you said in today's session, Lisa, or putting it on a 3 or a 5 year plan for your organization? What's the difference, you think?
Oh, with annual budgets and with large projects.
Mm-hmm.
When you develop a project that you want to do and you put it into the sort of the municipal process, it becomes a part of a capital project. Okay. And capital projects are improving your pool, building the spray park, or even getting design. So you actually say, I just want to do a design process. And so then they generally are, that's when you can get into the 3 to 5.
Okay, so keeping in mind for those people who are listening that maybe the projects Lisa's been talking about today, a different level of commitment or a different level of process than if you're with a municipal organization and you have to follow the certain legal budgetary processes. Would you say there's maybe a little bit more freedom when you're doing grants and working with the community? There's both more work, but perhaps more freedom because it's a different type of project.
Yeah, they definitely are more flexible when you work with community groups. There is more effort for sure, and you are a member of that group.
Yeah.
And I always felt very privileged to be a part of that. You're bringing your expertise to navigate the town processes, and you're allowing them to do it in a shorter time because you know the processes. With having a nonprofit, they can apply for different grants. Having a community group, then you get volunteer hours, and projects happen in a much different way.
Have you had any experience with grants not being grants or even projects? Maybe they stall and it takes a while to get them going. So Colleen mentioned in the chat box that she had to apply to USA Swimming 4 times, but she finally got her grant. Have you experienced that kind of flat line with any projects you've been involved with, Lisa?
Yeah, so there's a couple projects I just didn't think were going to happen, honestly, even though they're started and we've got the group and like the pathway along the highway. We had the $380,000 in the bank for the town of Golden. and we had absolutely nothing to match it.
Right.
And we there weren't at that time any other sort of like, so the town couldn't commit more than what was in the bank. And there weren't other provincial granting programs to match it. And so it was at least 5 years from the time I got the first planning grant. It was a year to get that locomotion money. So I had money in 2 years.
Wow.
Just because the initiatives were sort of overlapped or connected. And then it was another 3 or 4 years. And as I said, it was Christina Benty meeting with a minister, which, you know, like I said, it was just a turning point that I didn't expect. And that's when the province just said, I don't know, they just find different money that you don't even know they have, which I'm sorry to say, because it's not an easy process. But it was a successful one. With the spray park, that whole funding process was 4 years. And the capital grant that I got that we got for, you know, the matching of 101, that was 5 different applications of different grants. We applied for Rick Hansen. We applied for there was a Canadian infrastructure, just, you know, small projects grant, didn't get that one. And then you're thinking, once again, the initial money's in there, not even close to enough, right? We probably had $67,000 in the bank initially, and 3 years later, we finally get the final matching grant.
Well, I think what you said is valuable for anybody on these projects. Persistence is key, because you never know what's going to break through, whether it's grants, funding, or any project management, I would say, in municipal recreation, where you feel like you're up against a bullhead with something just not working. It's not being a thorn in the side. It's just saying, you know, how can I restate what I'm doing or revise what I'm doing? Or yesterday, Lisa, when we were talking offline, you were discussing how maybe, you know, there's projects right now that are not meant for COVID, but can you adapt a project, an outdoor project you wanted to do, and make it seem as though it's geared towards COVID and physical distancing and outdoor spaces? It's the same project. It's just how you frame it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I looked at the cultural spaces one again, and it's still open, and it's unique. It's creating cultural hubs, and so you're going, oh well, there's something in there. There's some place in there, and everyone is doing asset management right now. So that just is the word of the day. And so I don't know, and especially with older pools and the work that needs to be done there, I think there's some possibilities around that. As you said, the COVID, there's federal money allocated now specifically to meet regulations. So water fountains, and what does the spacing need to do in recreation facilities? So there is some opportunities out there.
Well, and I want to comment generally too, so everybody who's still here can think about this. I mean, now is the time too, if you had some money in the hopper in your budget, or you've received some money, to really look too at the proposals and the quotes and all of those tenders you've received if you had them. And now's the time to reconsider or renegotiate. So I'm certainly not suggesting that you go to the new lowest bidder, or you go only to the service provider that is still making their employees work in an unsafe manner. But certainly as a service provider in the private sector, I mean, you have buying power right now to negotiate, because there's not a lot of work happening. And so I've spoken with several clients that are moving ahead with projects now because they can get more favorable terms, faster turnaround, better, whatever upsells on their project, because those companies need liquidity and they need jobs to keep their payroll going. Right. So certainly that's a consideration too for everyone doing projects right now. Maybe the money you thought wasn't enough. Maybe right now there's 5% discount, or maybe there's financing that's available from a service provider or a vendor. That's something to consider as well.
Yeah, and Canada Parks and Rec Association, they've got some documents in Google right now. how to get the economy back. And so these are advocacy letters, of course, and but they do say that, you know, to get the economy going, we should be investing in recreation infrastructure. And so whether that actually happens, but it is something to keep in mind, to keep your eyes open, and maybe do get a little bit shovel ready. If you've got a project and a proposal, create your vision, objectives, whatever. It has to, I probably should caveat too, it can be very simple. The grant applications are getting simpler and simpler. But you do need those core pieces. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, Lisa, if you're working on a spray park or even if you're working on a boiler application, once you write it once, it's just a copy and paste. It might take you a day to really answer all those questions. As long as you save all the answers in a Word document, you can pick and choose what data you need in the next application. And again, state Colleen's point, right? Just be prepared to, you know, apply and get rejected, but you never know what's going to stick.
Yeah. I had this amazing person when I was in High River, Pat Markley, and she was a journalist by trade, and she was a beautiful writer. So it kind of hurt when we got rejected from a grant, because I knew how much wonderful, beautiful writing she put into it, but you do have to just let it go. I have heard that some grants are completely tied to the MLA or the MP that is in your riding, and if you're in a riding that's NDP and the government's Liberal, then it's a more difficult time to get grants, and that's a factor. And I have no. I just say that it may not be fact, but it might impact.
I think that's a good way to look at it. I've told people to think about it like a job interview. Like, you may be the most qualified person. You may think that you're going to get the job, but you're not at the table when they make that decision. And it's same thing with a grant or any sort of funding. It may not be fair. It may not be equitable. It may not be value-based, but it's also not personal. So you shouldn't think that maybe the writing was spectacular and they didn't read it, right? You just have to reapply, resubmit. And I can speak only for myself now that I'm in the private sector versus municipal. I'm a lot more comfortable with rejection now than I was before, because people just reject you all the time for whatever you're doing. You just got to keep doing it. Otherwise, you're not going to pay your bills, right? You keep doing it. Yeah. So any other thoughts you want to give us, Lisa, on grants, funding, COVID, or just things that you're mentally chewing over right now as we're in like month 2 of quarantine, going into month 3?
Yeah, it sure is weird times, that's for sure. And as I said, I've been thinking about recreation facilities and kind of wishing I worked for municipal government right now, because I could support with my skills and experience. My email's there, and if people are working on something that they need help with, I'm happy to respond to an email.
Okay. I just thought of one other thing. How in the past have you decided which grants work for the project? Like, or do you shoehorn the project into the grant that you find on the internet?
No, I think honestly the most successful way is to really define your project, define your goals of what you want to accomplish, and then find grants that align. I think it's really important. And then we did talk a little bit about how to be creative, but you have to really decide, like accessibility, you know, Rick Hansen has grants, but you have to be honest about that. Is your project really improving accessibility? And yeah, don't waste your time and theirs.
Yeah. What about, you mentioned a lot in your talk, community champions. So how can we find those people in our community? Let's say we're starting a new job or we just don't know who to talk to. What in your experience is the way that we can find those people?
Yeah, I think it's starting small. And it is probably just you getting more familiar with your community. And I think I would start where your comfort level is. And so joining groups that you're I think, and I'll use my examples with a small community, both in High River and in Golden, and I worked some time in Black Diamond too. some of the same community leaders are in 2 or 3 different groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found those community leaders when I was hiking and cycling initially. And so you help out with the Rabbits Nordic Club programs or their race, and then you start to see their face. And then it is probably just even connecting with some of the executive directors or at least their teams from a nonprofit perspective. Because in a smaller community or even in larger communities, it's your neighborhood executive director that's so connected to all those social programs. And they usually are an influential leader in their area and in their community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to your point, Lisa, it could be the PTA group, it could be a youth sports league, it could be a religious group, it could be different community leaders, and just getting connected to what's important in the community is finding those leaders. And certainly your council or your government is important, but it's also the people leaders, right? The people who are not paid, the volunteers, those same faces that Lisa mentioned you see again and again. And I also thought while you were talking, Lisa, that would allow you to coordinate a little bit if it's a regional grant or a town grant, making sure there's not that you want to prevent competing applications, but being aware what's out there and going forward for request.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I probably could have learned more from it. I'm a bit of an introvert, and so it's harder for me to meet new people. But it is mapping out some of those influential leaders and just connecting with them at a more social level, them knowing you and you knowing them, and then because you've had that coffee with them, and then you come and do your little elevator speech, and it aligns with some of the work they're doing, and then they go, oh, well, that's cool. And but it is, mapping it out a bit more.
So it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Lisa. So it's funny. I'll remind you, I don't know if you remember this story, but I'll tell the audience too. I am also an introvert, but I'm extroverting hard right now on these webinars and in my work. But literally, Lisa and I were working together and we had the insights done, the true insights. And it was you, me, Cindy at the table, blue, green, 70. So literally the same. I'm just introverting really, really hard right now. And then I'm going to go and crash afterwards and sit in my dark room. And my husband will be like, hey, what's going on? Why are you alone? Right? We do things differently. It's
you pull out your other person for a while, which is helpful. That's super helpful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you to Lisa Reinders, the Quantum Recreation. We're going to get some links to some different grant resources for Canada up on the show notes. If you in the US or Canada have any other grant resources, places, hubs that you check that you'd like to share, pop those in the chat box and I'll add them to the show notes later. Lisa, we'll say thank you. You can turn off your mic and camera if you'd like, and I'll just make a couple of quick announcements. So we have, next week is the last week of the POOLaide webinars. So we're just finishing up. There's a lot of places for you to be online. A lot of people are really busy. So we're just finishing up those webinars. And we will have 3 sessions next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The links are in the chat box. I will repost them, but basically Monday is online in-service, how to use it in the future, not just during COVID 2019. We have 2 ladies from University of North Texas. Wednesday next week, we're going to hear from Eileen Kwan. She's going to be talking about budget conversations post-COVID. So how can we negotiate commitments and conversations and budgetary considerations on projects, but also just generally operating post-COVID. I know that's not a very that's not a very well described session, what she's going to talk about. I gave Eileen a lot more leeway. I trust her with what she wants to talk about. So you just have to trust me that it'll be a great session, even if I can't really explain how she's doing it. So that will be Wednesday. Let me post that link in the chat box. Friday next week is the last live session with me. So I will be doing a Q&A. I would ask as much as possible that you pop your Q&A into the Padlet ahead of time. So if you haven't used Padlet, Padlet is like a sticky note system. So I've popped I will pin it in the chat box. Padlet is a sticky note system where you can go and put anonymous questions, comments. I can address those during our Q&A next Friday. I'll be giving a sneak peek to the future of the POOLaide webinars, what that looks like later in the summer. After we're going on hiatus indefinitely. I don't have a firm release date for the next phase of this project, but it's not going away forever. Also this weekend, our email newsletter will be going out. So if you'd like to receive the newsletter, please sign up through our website. That will be going out on Sunday. Excuse me. I currently do it weekly during COVID and monthly when there is no global pandemic. This will probably be one of the last couple weeks where I do one newsletter. I will go back to doing 2 or 3 separate newsletters as we're seeing a disparity between how Canadian pools versus US pools treat the situation. So we do have different newsletter lists. Be sure to sign up for the correct newsletter list that meets your geographic location. And I think that's pretty much it for me. So have a good weekend. Thank you for spending part of your Friday, May 15th with us. Thank you to Lisa Reinders for presenting on projects, a little bit on grants, getting us thinking about how we can really get some of these projects going. I will be on here for a few more minutes in the chat box so that you have access to the links. They don't just, the whole window doesn't disappear. So if you need anything, you can pop a question in the chat box or send me an email. And we'll see those of you that are able to join us on Monday for our last 3 sessions. So stay safe and have a good weekend. Happy Victoria Day, Canadians, and happy weekend for everyone else. Bye for now.